iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Pablo, Marissa, welcome to iHeartRadio Broadway. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
So before we talk about this amazing project, just a quick catch up. How are you both doing? We're at the year mark of this pandemic, of the Broadway shutdown. So I just want to check in. How are you both doing right now?
I feel like there are so many ups and downs throughout the year, have been ups and downs throughout the year. And stuff like this have been absolute ups. So, we all have this we're riding the same roller coaster. And I feel like I've been fortunate enough to figure out the ups more than the downs.
That's a really good way to put it, though.
Yeah, we try. We all try.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I definitely figured out how to do the year quarantine. I'm devastated for Broadway. Just the Broadway situation is, I think has been hit the hardest. I think New York itself has been hit the hardest, just because New York, people don't realize when we say Broadway shut down, all the restaurants and the hotels and it's not just like, oh, I don't have a job on Broadway, or, Beetlejuice closed and now what are they doing? No, it's the 600 people that run that theater. It's everyone from, the usher to the flute player to, it's everybody. It's the people that work out of the offices that are selling tickets. There's so many people that actually make a Broadway theater run. And then the restaurants nearby and the, that are getting the dinner crowd before Broadway, who's going into New York City to Midtown to just hang out. There's a reason people go to Midtown, and that whole community is hurting. Not just, you hear a lot about from the actors because we're the ones who are speaking out and we're the ones that get booked on things to talk about it, but it's really not about, it is about the actors, but it is really about the whole New York and all of the people that are suffering. I live in Los Angeles, and I think recording this album was the first thing I really did left my house for. And it I haven't left my home, but I live in a home with a backyard, and I haven't complained once about it. You definitely won't find me out complaining, because I know that I'm in a much better situation than a lot of, even my my closest friends are I live in a 1-bedroom alone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that you must be so lonely, and that must be so hard, so I have figured out how to do it with my family. And sure, yeah, it's been an interesting year, and I'm excited for the vaccine, and I'm excited for people to get the vaccine and then go back out and go to a theater.
And I will say, I was in Times Square the other day, and it was the first time in a year I've seen tourists taking photos. And I was like, oh, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. They are coming back. So
yeah,
hopefully we'll get through the next few months, and then we'll all be back to a regular scheduled programming. But we are here to talk about Swinging with the Music of Broadway, Volume 1. Before we talk about this very special album, Pablo, how did this whole entire project come to be, even before you started creating the Broadway album?
Sure. So this is actually an extension of a live performance series.
Beautiful love letter to our Broadway industry. You have some amazingly talented people on this album. Marissa, for you, what was it like recording during a pandemic, and how did that process come to be? What was that like for you?
Well, Pablo was very patient with me. I'm a girl who wants to rehearse 20 hours and let's sit at the piano and figure it out, and then figure out what I'm going to do with it. And that, I'm more of an actress than I am a singer. I always say I'm never going to put out an album. That's not my thing. So it's always funny when people ask me to sing on something, because I'm always like, not really what I do. I feel like I find a song and then take a moment, and this was more poor Pablo sent me the song, and then it was he sang it, and I was like, how do I sing, because you're a boy, and where do I put it in my voice? And I was poor Pablo. He was like, oh, here, I'll sing it for you. And then and being in a pandemic, I went into the booth, I walked into a booth and they walked into there, and nobody was I'm gonna, it was hard. It was interesting and different. And, you know, there was definitely moments that I had no idea what I was singing or what note it was. And then Pablo went into like another room where there was a piano and he's like, here, I'll play this into the track so you can follow that. And, you know, and I was like, just leave Pablo's voice in there and I'll sing to Pablo. Because, you know, we couldn't rehearse. How are we going to rehearse? You know, as everybody knows, singing over Zoom, it doesn't really, it won't ever work. And, you know, and so we just swang it. We winged it. I don't know what the word is.
Swinged it.
We winged it and swinged it. That's what we should name the next album. Wing
That's
it and
volume-
swing it.
That's volume 2.
Yeah, so basically it was like no other experience, but also I was terrified because it was truly, like Pablo will tell you, like I was like the last to record and like hopes that like nobody would have COVID, you know. It was like he couldn't tie me down for a date because I was like, I'd have to leave my house, like I don't know, because like I'm being very, very careful with COVID, obviously, as everyone should be. I was your Jewish mother who like didn't let you go to the park. Like I was like that person, which I already am that person. You know, and then it's like, I told you all we're all gonna get a pandemic. You should have been washing your hands all along, you know. So.
I will say Marissa she called it like in January of last year. I saw her at a theater and she was already like, this is the last show I'm coming to. And 2 months later, shut down.
Yeah, I knew like 2 months early. I knew.
Why aren't you running the CDC then?
Right.
Well, that's what I'm sure you've read it. Lots of people are like, just let when the vaccine rollout was, you know, starting off a little slow, like God, we've got it all now. I feel like people are getting the vaccine now, so no complaints, like get that vaccine. But I will say that in the beginning, I'm sure you saw like people were posting, they're like, let the out of work stage managers do this vaccine rollout and we will all have a vaccine. And it was the same thing. Like every like mom at home was like, you want to put a vaccine in everyone's arm? I can tell you exactly where to start. You know, I was like, we're like, oh yeah, like, you know, and every person I spoke to over 65, they were like, I'm gonna wait. I'm like, oh my God, get the vaccine. Like I was like, just we should have been doing it. Like, or they should have opened up theaters and been like, we're gonna stand by, let the ushers, like, because those ushers get you in your seat at 8:05, get a playbill in your hand, got you sitting down, got the gum out of your mouth. Like they don't mess around, you know, like by, you know, if you show up late, you wait until that next song, you know.
Basically, if you had done ushers, stage managers, company managers, and then any sort of PA within the Broadway space, we would have had a different vaccine rollout no matter what. Just get the Broadway community involved. Let's do it that
literally.
way.
We're like a scrappy bunch. Like, listen, like, at the end of the day, we are the scrappiest. We, you know, you go into Broadway, and I think Seth Rudetsky put it best once, that it was like, I think he's the one who said it. It's like Narnia when you're a kid. You like look into the theater and you're like, oh, what's back there? And then when you work back there, you're like, oh my God, my dressing room has like 10 years of mold on it. You know, you're like there, you don't have a chair to sit on, you know, but when you're on stage, none of that matters, right? Like no complaints. But it's like, we are a scrappy bunch. We get shit done, you know? It's like, we really do. So we should have, the Broadway community, the out of work, all of that Broadway community, again, meaning everybody that's part of the community would have had that back. Everybody, we would be back in theaters today.
Between Broadway, the national tour scene, then you put regional community theaters in it, it would have not.
Oh my God, if you put the bus and truck in there, this vaccine would have been done in 1 month. Like, I mean, we all did it. Like the amount of stuff, like we would pull into a theater and a whole show would be up, and then we would pull out and go to the next show the next day and the whole show would be up. Like the touring companies that vaccine would have been no problem.
Yep. So I do want to get back to the album because I could talk about this for days. No pun intended, Marissa, you sing one of the most popular musical theater songs ever on this album. You do cover Popular from Wicked. So
maybe not a good idea, right?
Were there nerves? Because again, that is one of the most popular, most beloved modern musical theater classics in history. So were there nerves to take this brand new rendition and record it for an album?
No, because honestly, I had no thought process. I was like, oh my God, just sing the notes that Pablo told me to sing. Like I genuinely didn't think about it until after. And then I was like, Oh my God, wait, I should have probably done a song that nobody really cares about. Like, why did I pick a song that everybody cares about? So thank you for pointing that out. Now I am like, oh, shoot. I should have picked something like less mainstream. I should have just gone with like some, definitely a song people didn't know. And they're like, oh, that's an interesting song. I don't even know that song, So Popular is, and it was also like a song I knew, and I knew the words. And although I will tell you, like a lot of times when we were singing it, I was like, I never knew what that word was. Like I never knew that phrase until we had to like sing it. And Pablo and I was like, what is that word, Pablo? Like on the day of recording, I was like, I think I always just like sing along, but not really know the words I'm singing. So no, I had no nerves about it until now. So thank you for doing that.
She kills it though. It's an
you too.
It's a great track.
I agree with Pablo. It's a killer track on the album, and you do such an amazing job at keeping it classic but updating it at the same time. So I love it, and I think it's perfect. And I think it's perfect choice for you to have performed. So I love it.
Yes, thank you.
So Pablo, when it comes to the song choice with creating the album, was it really going to people and saying, what song would you like to do? Let's arrange it. Or was it you saying, I have this, do you want to sing this? How did that whole pairing of talent and songs work?
It varies. It truly varies. I'll go back to the Disney album that came out in July of last year. I assigned everybody songs basically. Nobody really chose their song. Because I decided I was recording an album in May and put it out in July. So I just had to go. I had no time to sort of like take options or take ideas. But for Broadway, we had a couple months. So I was able to sort of like, I mean, even with Marissa, we had a couple options that we just like threw in. We're like, maybe this, maybe this, maybe that. So it really depended on the artist's desire to do a certain song, and if it fit into the way that I structure the album, we went with it. But there was not one way to choose a song.
So with that, can you give a little not a hint, because the album comes out on the 27th, but who besides Marissa is also featured on the album?
Sure. So we have I think the press release hit today.
It did.
We have Laura Osnes, we have John Tartaglia, we have the Fates from Hadestown. They're fantastic, and they were very gracious. They were gracious enough to record in 3 separate locations. So it was a headache, but it was fun. And Brittany Johnson, who was most recently in Wicked.
So I do want to give a little shout out to John Tartaglia. So he was supposed to be on this interview with us, but he unfortunately is in the middle of his own little filming project. And little, I mean, actually something that's really very cool. His rendition of Put On Your Sunday Clothes from Hello Dolly is so much fun. And I think that listening to him, it's just not something that you would expect from him, I would say. It's very unexpected, and I love it so beyond that I've listened to it so much. So again, this album is very special. It's a fun album. It's such a beautiful love letter to the Broadway community and the industry, and the fact that you have this talent group on volume 1. So therefore, my follow-up question is, are we getting a volume 2?
Yeah, I mean, that's the intention. Funny enough, I've waited 11 years and Disney finally dropped a volume 2 to my favorite jazz album of theirs. They named it volume 1 back then, and I'm like, where is this volume 2? So I'm not gonna wait a whole decade, but yeah, I'm not gonna wait a whole decade, but soon enough. I mean, I'm gonna do it naturally. I'm not gonna push it. I think the project came out very, it is a labor of love, and love is not rushed. So I'm not going to rush that.
Well, the album comes out on March 27th, which is World Theater Day, which coincidentally is this Saturday. Again, to both of you, congratulations for putting this, to Pablo for putting this together. Marissa, your performance is so wonderful on this album. It's so nice to celebrate new things coming out in this pandemic. So I just want to congratulate both of you. The album's out again on March 27th, wherever you download or stream your music. I wish you both nothing but the best while we get through the rest of the quarantine and pandemic. And hopefully we'll see each other in a theater soon.
Oh, hopefully. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.